Hello. Hey, what's going on? How is everyone doing? What's good? What's good? Welcome back to a live episode of the red pill versus the blue pill. It's your favorite prescribing pharmacist, Dr. Delon Canterbury, and I'm here today sharing some of the wins we've had recently in the world of TEDx. This has always been a dream of mine to share my story about why I created geriatrics, sure, but to talk about ways we can expand the force of reducing medication related adverse events in our older adults, in our seniors, and our loved ones, particularly that are dealing with this. So I'm still reeling from the adrenaline rush from this past weekend, and saying officially, even getting used to saying, "Yo, I'm here for a TED talk." No, I'm here to give it, not be in the audience. Was surreal. And I wanted to share some of the wins, sure, with you all, but what were some of the tips and things I've learned behind the scenes that have got to this point in the creation of my company, GeriatRx, and also, how can we better advocate? Yeah, appreciate you, Hannah. Thank you. Yeah, we have to share, and I'm glad it touched your heart. That's so sweet for you to say that. And it's just phenomenal. And then to share this moment with my family, to have my family out there, in the audience and support and show love, families and friends. I had people come drive from an hour away just to show some love. So um, I want to just share with you the journey, of course, of what got us here, and then hopefully give you all a little bit of hope and inspiration that it doesn't, you can do this too. You can absolutely do this too. So let's talk a bit about you know what deep prescribing is about before we dive in. So my idea, for those who follow geriatrics for a minute, that we're coming from a place of passion and, well, a place of personal experience in having my parents thrust into caregiving from my grandma Mildred. And so a lot of my talk was centered around the journey we had to embark on as caregivers. My granny was given ziprasidone while she was in a nursing facility. The medication worsened her dementia. And so we ended up moving her out of Brooklyn to Atlanta. And, well, we're thrown into caregiving firsthand with someone with what was mild dementia turning into severe dementia, irritability, hiding those dentures, hiding those glasses, having to childproof the home, worsened memory loss, sundowning, trying to escape, you name it. Our parents saw it. And at that time, I wasn't a pharmacist yet. I was still in the throes of applying for it. But it was the reason why I decided to get a board certification in geriatric pharmacotherapy. And it's the reason why, after seeing it time and time again in the community as a pharmacy manager, that I used this experience to pivot and create geriatrics, which you see today, a telehealth based deep prescribing concierge service that people can use to get an objective opinion on what the meds may or may not be doing. So, in a nutshell, that's what I do. And now I've created this business as of 4 years to inspire other passionate geriatric pharmacists to do the very same thing. And I mean, and address the real elephant in the room. We have an increasing aging population, going to be about 80 million people by the year 2040. We have 1% of medical providers as geriatricians. We got about less than 1% of geriatric pharmacists. I'm sorry, as 1% of pharmacists as geriatric trained pharmacists. So a lot of our care is going to fall on these nurse providers and PAs. And, well, we just have tremendous labor shortages. We're seeing a doubling in the price of caregiving by the year 2026. It's going to cost us from 2.8 trillion up to 5.6 trillion in just a couple of years to pay to care for our aging community. So again, we don't have enough people making the demands. And even when you go through the health system, you try scheduling a clinic visit for, your grandma. You're not going to get a visit for another 8 to 10 months, 6 months out. and you may have, well, an urgent need to be addressed. And a lot of my business growth has come from, well, people in need of an urgent review of some of these medications, or at least an assessment of what's going on. So I say this to say that the system works when it works, but most of the time it doesn't. And frankly, we're not using enough geriatric trained people and pharmacists, particularly, to address the elephant in the room. We have increased falls, we have increased side effects, we have increased drug interactions, we have all these risk factors of harm for our seniors, yet we don't have a service that can address these medication side effects. We literally have to wait for the health system to say, you know what, maybe we should stop that medicine. Like, duh, what do you think? Why do you think I'm seeing so many patients on 20 plus meds or more, 15 plus meds or more, and we're wondering why they're dehydrated, we're wondering why they're following, we're wondering why they have to have cognitive impairment, you know? And it's, to me, heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking that we're trying to depend on a system that doesn't adequately assess the need to deprescribe. So anyway, long ass tangent to get into the finer point of, this is why I'm on this stage. This is why I was on that red dot. The idea worth spreading is the essence of what TED Talks are. Is what is your unique idea that the world just needs to know about? What's a perspective change? What's a way that we can reframe our thinking? What's something that can really impact change? And so the premise behind TED Talks are to have awesome people share a story that can impart basically next steps from the audience and the listeners to go about a change in their day-to-day. And so the first thing you want to land a TED Talk is to think about, what is your idea worth spreading, whether it's a TED Talk or TEDx Talk. Just so those who don't know, it took me some time to realize, but the TED Talk is more internationally recognized. This is a nonprofit, which I did not know TEDx or TED Talks were nonprofit based, but essentially it's meant to share ideas across the world. The TED Talks are more internationally recognized, and TED Talks are invite only, where those that are on TEDx platforms, those are individual hubs that essentially use the TED name, but they're independently organized from the greater TED organization. Okay, so you're going to have TEDx Atlanta, TEDxOcala, TEDx Raleigh, all these kind of suburb hubs. Those are going to be the TEDx Talks. And again, those are individual regions that set it up, where TED Talks are internationally and also local, and they are generally invitation only. All right, so just to give you some differentiators on that. And I'm pretty sure, at least I don't foresee that this will not be our first and only TED Talk. It is our first, but we're going to have more, whether it's TEDx or TED. I'm excited for it. But applying wasn't too bad, applying. They do have a form online for whichever hub you want to go for. Those people, some people have asked me, do you have like a professional training, or are you paying to learn how to do this? I'm like, no, I haven't. I don't have any professional media training. I have only practice, I guess, by going live and getting comfortable on camera. So that was something that played a role in definitely getting me here and becoming a known public speaker. But I would say the most beneficial thing that got me comfortable with speaking publicly was getting involved with your local Toastmasters group. Toastmasters International is an amazing group of people. And you don't have to necessarily join your local chapter. You can join any chapter in the country, and they can meet whenever. And essentially, they'll get you comfortable with understanding, timekeeping, avoiding filler words, being more succinct in your language and your delivery, learning how to tell a story, learning how to captivate your audience, and there are different styles of talking. So Toastmasters, fairly affordable. I think it was maybe $45 for 6 months or so. You have to pay your dues. But that's the first thing I tell people who are like, yo, how did you get a TED Talk, or how do you get comfortable doing this? I'm like, I only got comfortable doing this because I got very good at telling my story, telling my why, and learning how to connect with people based on shared experiences. And frankly, every one of us has a shared experience of a loved one who has gotten sick or who maybe did not get the best treatment from their provider or health system, or might be suffering from medication side effects. Go figure. It's a world that we live in. And we all want people on less meds, but we don't realize that there's an option to get off some of these meds, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about my work as a concierge pharmacist, but also in empowering other geriatric pharmacists, other dope parts of the senior care community, home health industries, managed care orgs, ACOs, getting insurers involved, getting primary care providers involved, getting caregiver advocates involved, patient advocates, patient navigators, geriatric care managers, social workers, area agencies on aging. They all can be hubs for medication safety and education. So, why the hell don't we use more expertise to reach people that are in, well, desperate need of these services? So, that's my mindset around deprescribing. I don't think it just has to be at the doctor's office. I think that's a key piece, but it starts with a dialogue. It starts with building trust with someone. It starts with having their best interests at heart. It starts with the communication. It starts with empathy. These are soft skills that are critical to make deep prescribing conversations even occur. Otherwise, you're going to be going up against the psychology of someone who's been on medicines for 20, 30 years, who have been brainwashed to think this is the only way I can get better. And if you don't address that elephant in the room, you're going to have a very hard time getting someone off of those medications. And that's where you have to have continuous education that's easy to digest and coming from an angle of love and coming from an angle of empathy. And I discussed that as a part of my TED Talk. But more importantly, it really doesn't work if you don't have that. If you don't have that baseline trust, it's going to be very hard to have this conversation. And so I teach people that 92% or 94% of patients are willing to have deprescribing take place if it's presented by their primary care provider. So it's important for primary care providers to get the education around how to start deprescribing conversations, right? So I'm not going to go down the weeds of that, but the TEDx experience was completely phenomenal, completely amazing. I have huge shout out to Manal Fakhoury and her team of amazing speaker coaches, along with her team of TEDx volunteers who took in time and energy. And a lot of their speaker coaches were past either TEDx speakers or very involved with Toastmasters, like I mentioned. And they are great at critiquing, your speech and reviewing slides, of course, getting you to rehearse, getting you comfortable, getting you the right mindset, supporting you throughout the process. And I believe we need more pharmacists on the TEDx stage. I was so glad to share that stage with Dr. Janan Sarwar, a fellow UNC alum who shared her story, being Bengali, but also having a family and having children who, well, she saw a need for more books that were representative of other cultures. So she gave an amazing speech on essentially, are we having books that are windows, basically ways to see through other people's lives, or are we having books that are more mirrors, where you're basically seeing the same thing that we see in mainstream? And so she highlighted the disparities in published books from other authors that are of different ethnicities, and well, she decided to tackle that on with her Salam publishing storytelling. So huge shout out to her. Much love for a fellow UNC alum. So it was great to share the stage with another pharmacist, but also the coordinator, Manal Fakhoury, is a pharmacist as well by trade. So it was super dope to be able to have a little pharmacist pick with everyone. But everyone was passionate. I mean, whether it was dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, whether it was talking about movement as medicine from Dr. Hatem, whether it was racism found in medical AI, and Whether it was, hey, overcoming imposter syndrome slash imposter phenomena. These were all brilliant topics that just resonated with people. And again, that's what gets you to the stage, is what is something that can resonate with the audience, and they can leave with some next steps to grow themselves. So leading up to this point, I applied actually the year before to join the TEDxOcala stage. I did not get it. I did, however, become an alternate, which is awesome. So they had better candidates that year that made the cut, and I could have been an alternate in case someone backed out. Now, no one backed out, unfortunately, which is fine. It gives me more time to prepare. But I was invited to reapply again, and this year was the year I actually got it for TEDxOcala, and of course, it was titled "Unleashing." No, it was titled "Accelerating the Power of Deprescribing." Right. So, great idea. Clearly, we don't have many talking about deprescribing on a stage like that. So, definitely was passionate about that. But you know, day to day, you see me on social platforms doing my thing, talking, whatever, and telling your story gets, it becomes second nature when you do it repeatedly. However, it's one thing to tell your story in an informal setting, but it's another thing to do it in a formal, timed uh, stage where the environment is completely different, and there's a way you have to captivate your audience with your personality, with your cadence, with your tone, with your lows, your volume, with your you know attitude, and that's a whole different level of stage presence that I had no clue about. And as a part of the process, it was, we started drafting our scripts a couple of months ago, and it's fairly easy to write, story of my grandma and the current aging epidemic we're in, and how we are ill suited to prepare to manage their care. Easy to write that stuff. Completely different ball game to memorize it, and then in a way that's concise, because you don't want to get into the habit of just overtelling a story, or boring your audience. You have to do it in a very concise manner. And so the time goal is between 12 and 14 minutes. Okay. And I, I couldn't tell you what everyone else did, but I don't think the majority of us met the 12 to 14-minute mark, just being real. But ideally, you want to hit 12 to 14 minutes. Past that, you start losing your audience. So I think mine ultimately came down to 14 minutes and 58 seconds, which, hey, I'm happy with that. That was the shortest time. Uh, but like I was saying, it is way different to memorize a script and know the transition phrases and the ideas. And there are several ways that people pontificate on how to memorize it. Like, some people memorize having pictures, like 4 to 5 pictures in your head as talking points. I tried that, didn't do great at it. And I've it's funny because yeah, you memorize it all day, but I will say the saving grace is knowing that your audience has no clue whether it was rehearsed or whether that was intentional or scripted. So even though you're saying it for the first time in your live audience, uh, they're not going to know if you mixed one paragraph with another, or confuse a thought or two. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely did that. And hopefully you guys will see the talk in a couple weeks. To get the full live recording, we're not allowed to share any of the live footage from it yet. Uh, but my gosh, I'll tell you what, I think it went phenomenally well. I'm so glad we had a dress rehearsal the day before, to go through all the kinks. Everyone's, some people had last minute slide changes, which I had way too many slides. I simply, yeah, I had, I don't know, 10 slides, I want to say, at first. And for a 12-minute talk to 14 minutes, it was way too much. So I had to cut out a lot of the slides I thought that would, work well. But frankly, I think the message still was driven home. I know some people had like more slides. They decided to just go with one. Some people had a lot of slides and they still had to cut it down and still had a lot. It is what it is. But you don't have to use slides when you give your TED talk. You can choose to have slides or not have slides. Uh, it's up to you, up to your personal preference. Me personally, a lot of this had to do with my family. And because it had to do with my family, I wanted to capture the reason why I'm here, which is my grandmother, Mildred. So I started off with a picture of Granny and ended it with a picture of Granny and my family. Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Appreciate you. Appreciate the love. Thanks for the support. It went super, super well, and I can't wait to share the recording in a few weeks. But yeah, it was so much fun, and in a way, it was an honor to memorialize Mildred and her spirit, and I felt she was there in the room, just proud. Like, yo, this is what we do this for. Is there's a reason why we get into aging, but there's a reason why we would take such energy to get on a stage like that and then memorialize the story. So, yeah, shout out to Mildred, who's every day with us. But I will say, yeah, being on that stage is no joke. Yo, you could only see up to the third row of the audience. It's completely black. The lights are so. Your grandma was Mildred, Matt? Wow. That is crazy. Wow. And we're both in aging. That's so crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, man. I had no idea. But yeah, Mildred's why I'm here today. So, but yeah, on that stage, it's hot. Did not anticipate that. The lights are bright as hell. They're right in your eyes. So you have to kind of look away and still keep your points in the audience. Like I try to give me good eye contact and look and scan the audience throughout the talk. But it is a 6 foot by 6 foot circle. So there is room to kind of move around and bounce a little bit and walk up and walk back to emphasize your point. I didn't realize how much that would play a role in talking because we're used to Zoom and just standing in front of a camera and staying in that little area. But that was important. Was I now realized I could use my feet to emphasize or drive home a talking point. So that was a new thing for me. All right, I've never been in theater or dramatics or anything like that. So just kind of let the personality shine. Um, but rehearsal was clutch because man, there was just some last minute stuff we had to knock out, and I'm glad we figured out how to go through the pacing and how to exit the row and get mic'd up and learn that stuff. But I mean, truthfully, the best part about this were the other speakers and meeting the coaches. They all were just so cool and humble people. They holy cow, your godmother's name Mildred too, Tracy. Oh my gosh, we got a couple Mildreds in the audience. Hey Irene, thank you for the love. But yeah, so we got a couple Mildreds here. We got Tracy Faulkner's godmother named Mildred, and one of my good friends, Matt, also in the dementia space and aging industry. His grandmother's Mildred. So, wow, that's something I wouldn't have thought I would capture today. Um, but yeah, the people again were amazing. Manal was an excellent host. She invited all of us to her lovely home, um, essentially this beautiful mansion in Florida, and had her family involved, had her whole staff, everyone volunteered, everyone got to know each other a bit more personally and ease some of the tension of the jitters behind before a show starts. Um, and yeah, I mean, some of us, didn't have everything down packed. But I tell you, when we came that day on Saturday, we all flawlessly executed. Like all the kinks gone. Like you would have thought it was we it was just so well rehearsed. And I just that so many people inspired me in a way that I didn't think would be possible. Just particularly relating to imposter syndrome was a huge one. This guy RJ just gave an amazing testimony of being a cis male in the closet gay man at Columbia, and then felt dumb as hell by being around these super smart peers and then having to explain the journey of feeling like he didn't belong and then battling that journey and then bringing it full circle to now serve in a way to help people who felt the same way going to an Ivy League school. I'm not going to ruin the talk, but my God, his delivery was spot on, and just it made me resonate. Like, dang, when I was back at Emory, absolutely felt the same way. Back at pharmacy school, did not feel the same way as much, but I didn't feel like I belonged, and it was for different reasons. But and especially when you're a person of color, it's you can't hide that. You're gonna always feel in a way looked at differently, but you have to learn how to use that as your superpower, which is something my mentor has drilled into me. Sometimes being the different guy in the room is your leverage. Um, Took me a while to get that, but I tell you, these people just and what I like about the community of the TEDxOcala group were how multiple people came back. Like it wasn't just a one and done. Like it's almost as if you're being indoctrinated into a family of becoming either a future coach or a future speaker or volunteer for the event. Like most people I talked to were like, yeah, I maybe missed one, and they've had like 9 in the last few years. But most people have been so involved. It was just such a fun event for them that they wanted to pay it forward. So that was something I wasn't expecting. So I hope I can. I even hope I probably will be back in the future. Essentially to pay it forward. I mean, it was just such a great experience for me, and it was fun visiting that part of the state. So what else did I learn? I learned that I didn't really learn it, but super procrastinator. Did not enjoy rehearsing live. And leading up to the event, I knew, it was a dope thing to do. It was an awesome opportunity. It's amazing. But I wasn't as motivated to rehearse every day. I definitely like reread and listened to my script and recordings, but I wasn't like looking in the mirror and rehearsing into my phone and recording as much as I thought I would have liked. And I don't know what the funk was, to be real with you. I didn't know if it was being too comfortable or uh, there was just a hesitancy about it. I couldn't really explain the why. I just wasn't as motivated until the week or 2 weeks before. And then I'll be like, okay, now it's go mode. Let's get serious. And fortunately, I have to thank again, Dr. LaQuoia Johnson, who's a fellow friend, mentor, and Toastmasters president, along with Marc Cordon, who was also a former TEDx speaker and spiritual coach, life coach I worked with in the beginning of this process, along with Natalia Cox, who also was my designated speaker coach who helped rehearse with me. So a lot of people looked out and took the time to get me in the right headspace. Special shout out to Shemecka McNeil, who was so helpful in facilitating just a lot to make this a dope weekend for me. So not just in business, but just also coordinating the family and navigating, getting seats and essentially just helping me stay completely stress free. So I have to thank Shemecka McNeil, owner of Slice 325, fellow business partner and friend, and also mentor, I'd say. So it takes a tribe. It really does. And so for me, I sweat like crazy. So you'll eventually see that they actually have a makeup artist behind the stage. So they have someone you could choose to do makeup for you, and there's a magic to it where they can dull the shininess of my head. And I never had makeup done before. This was my first time being offered it, so I definitely got it in hopes it would prevent my usual sweating. Uh, I can say that did not happen. You're gonna see me sweating profusely within 2-3 minutes of getting on that stage and getting into the zone. And I'm wearing like a vest, so it's hot up there. And needless to say, the sweat came, and there was a point in the speech where I'm bothered by the sweat so much, I wipe my brow and then I look at it and then I go back into talking. And apparently, one of my best friends, Oshik, was talking about how, yeah, that was one part I would have like. I wish you didn't do because it was distracting, but you did great. But it was like you just looked at it, and now everyone's like, wow, I wonder what he sees in his hands. So just those little nuances you wouldn't think to look out for come with the territory. I think one moment I go forward a slide and I had to go back and reverse it, but it was fairly negligible. Um, but to be honest, man, it was really all about having what Manal termed and phrased, and I didn't learn this until doing the talk, was having some reserve capacity. So basically, there are moments where you may miss the flow between your thought and the next one, and you essentially are able to pull from your reserve capacity, which is your ability to basically continue the thought or point with a general idea. And so there were some, I wouldn't say some, there were quite a few times where I kind of blanked on the order of the speech and I was using that reserve capacity. So I'll be frank, there were times where I've remixed what I was supposed to say with another line and found myself 3 paragraphs into my speech and I went back to drive home an old point that I should have said earlier. And that's fine, whatever. When you see it, you probably won't notice a damn thing. But as a pharmacist, we tend to be a little bit perfectionisty, particular. But there were just little small things that I knew I mixed or quote unquote messed up on. But truthfully, it's being able to let things flow and let your magical personality shine, which wasn't really truly an issue at the end of the day. So overall, though, I will say the earlier you rehearse and get comfortable in front of camera, the better. It got easier the more I rehearsed in front of my phone and in front of my camera. So I will say if you already have your idea and thoughts, write it out, but go ahead and just do it in front of some people without any expectations. And do try to time yourself. Try to insert some pauses for some dramatic effect. If you have a point you want to bring home, repetition is really crucial. I found that using descriptive phrases like, my mom was a walking zombie, and then I repeated it, a walking zombie, to reiterate the point. That was really helpful. So just having some of those phrases in pharmacy, we like to say, fill a pill for every ill. It rhymes, it sounds dope. So I definitely threw that in there. Um, Discussing the root, problems we have with our systemic health system, and how to, unearth that. You guys know I love the Matrix, so I threw in a couple Matrix plugs and felt that we were in a healthcare matrix and that we need to choose the red pill as a metaphor to deprescribe. So you can get creative with how your delivery is set up and using those type of metaphors that are catchy. People like that and people remember that. So that's another thing I would add as an insight is if you have one of those kind of catchphrases, go ahead and throw it in. Um, it just drives home the point. Um, you don't need too many slides. I made that mistake and had a ton of slides. 12 minutes to 14 minutes. I promise you, it feels like it's 5 minutes when you're on stage. It feels like it's 5 minutes. And so in the beginning, I was going at like 16 minutes, 17 minutes. I was going over. So again, where my mistakes were in the beginning, where my reserve capacity was repeating stuff I've already said. And that's what can kill your audience's buy-in. So you have to stick to your script as much as you can and not rely on that reserve capacity as much, because I like to ramble and sometimes I find I'm saying the same thing in a different way, and that's wasting time and it's also losing your audience. So those are things I had to fine tune and again practice being more succinct in my delivery, but it helped out. Also practice standing. One thing I didn't realize was, if you have slides, you're going to need a clicker. So you need to get comfortable having something in your hand to replicate a clicker. So I had to start practicing with a remote controller in my hand just to get comfortable with how I'm going to control my hands, or would it be on my sides, or how am I going to emphasize a point. So just little things there. If you're going to have slides, you may have a clicker, and they're not going to know when you're going to change the slide. Only you will. So you're going to want to practice with a slide with the clicker in your hand to get comfortable there. And then the slides are meant to emphasize your point. They're not meant for you to rely on them. When we do journal clubs and presentations in a formal setting, we're kind of looking at the slide and, referencing it, or maybe even reading off of it. That's a big no-no in this world. We don't want you to read off any slides. We want you to be your personal self and use the slides, again, to just hone in the point. So another point I've taken away from there. Another huge tip, which I got from Janan, who got this from Dr. Christina Madison, who's also a repeated TEDx speaker, is to document your journey, just like I'm doing right now. When you're behind the stage, when you're on the scene, when you're, talking to other peers, like document it, take pictures, like get some informal selfies in there, get some footage, get some B-roll, so that when you're able to repurpose your talk for the future, you're going to have some content of you behind the scenes, you in front of that big TEDx logo. Those are big, big tips. So when it comes down the pipe, when the real recording comes out, because it takes, a month or two for editors to get the final shots out, you can now use this as a part of a way to tell your story, a part of your branding, a part of, solidifying your expertise as a public speaker. So document your journey. I took a bunch of candid videos behind the stage, at rehearsal, before the event. Thanks, Keith. Yo, appreciate you. Appreciate the love. Yeah, thanks. It went super, super well. And I'll be sharing the link when it drops in a few weeks. But yes, take the time to document up to the event, pub it, and then I would say most importantly, get to know your other speakers and the other coaches. These people have lived amazing lives. They continue to serve in a way that's aligned with what they usually speak about. So they're generally well connected and have a passion to give back. So that's one thing I wish I spent more time doing after the event, was connecting with other speaker coaches and other speakers as well. So definitely do that if you can. Get to know them, reach out to them. I'm grateful because our group decided to make a WhatsApp group so we can all stay in touch with each other and continue to share ideas, which I think is critical. There were a couple of doctors in there, lawyers, real estate agents, social workers, psychologists, just an amazing network of people. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So maximize it by building relationships. And so I know from a couple of them, I'm going to have a podcast with one of the other speakers who invited me, and she's, I don't know, number 2 in Australia. So I'll get to talk about Deprescribing in pediatrics, which, isn't my game, but hey, I got a speaking engagement from that. I met with someone behind the scenes who may be a potential client. They were talking about some concerns with the heart medicine that they were on, and the message I had resonated with them. So again, you don't know who's in the audience who needs your help or needs your gift or wants to be deprescribed or wants to learn more about it. I've had a former director of nursing reach out and just say, hey, it resonated. This is all I used to see. I've changed professions now, but man, your story hit home. Walking zombies, seeing the trajectory of where these facilities are going, these nursing homes, these ALFs. Not all of them are like that, but it's pretty substantial. And, it being in Florida, one of the largest retirement communities in the country. So it all was relevant. I met this amazing speaker named Elgin. He's a business coach. He's working with another pharmacist who's rolling out a compounding pharmacy in one of the major nursing homes there. And that could be a strategic partnership for me in rolling out a deprescribing service as a la carte, option for people who want that level of touch point and care. So again, I wasn't coming in thinking there'd be more opportunities just from the actual event, but there were people in the audience who were like, let me get your card. I want to work with you. So be prepared. Bring your business cards and be prepared to be your friendly self and, well, network. That's what it's about. So those are some major take homes for me. You definitely want to have some people in the audience take some footage of you, some pictures, some candids. That's going to be critical. So I was grateful to see my dad and sister there. The rest of my family's there in spirit. Uh, but yeah, you want someone just batting for you. So have someone in the audience to take your photos and again document the journey because you're gonna want this later when your Netflix documentary comes out or you want to do like some more social media pubbing or B-roll content for people making like a speaker reel about what you can do. So just food for thought. But more importantly, the biggest takeaway I'd say is you're not doing this for yourself. It's of course going to be helpful for you and whatever you want to do in your life, but you're giving this talk for your audience. So imagine the audience is like your best friend and you're just trying to make sure they leave with what they need to get to do the best that they can for the rest of their lives. So treating the audience as if that's your only end all be all is what will make your talk much more insightful and much more impactful. So speak to it as if you're talking to a close friend. Imagine you're, in a comfortable setting like a party and you're telling a joke or a story or something that's not as, stressful as being in a formal environment. And so that's some tips I got from the speaker. Ahmed, he mentioned that was what he used to practice. And again, you're here for your audience, so make your audience feel like the oohs, the ahs, the warm fuzzies, the wow. You're here to help them leave with tools to better themselves or their loved ones. Okay, and that was what helped. What my conversation was, I framed the audience to think about who is their loved one, who is their Mildred, who is their, granny, who is the one that is on over 5 meds, who is dealing with side effects, who hasn't had a medication review, who is, falling or looking at a nursing home, or maybe isn't aging as well as we could. Who is that person that's my grandma that fits their current life? And that's how I framed my talk was who is your loved one today that you think of while I'm speaking? And that is going to make you go home and pick up that phone and call, hey, let me see your med list. Hey, has the doctor mentioned anything about this? Okay, why are you on this? Like, I'm telling people to question everything. And I can guarantee you, during our talk, we were able to drive that point home of reframing the narrative around this medication mindset that we all need to be on a bunch of pills to live longer, which was actually the first talking point I made in my speech, which was like, yo, why does it feel like we have to have more and more meds for people to age healthily at home? And I'm like, we don't need all this. So again, driving it home to where your audience can relate to your point. Don't talk over their heads. Don't make aloof references to things that no one understands. Like, make it relatable, make it funny if you can, make it entertaining, make it yourself, make it all your personality, to drive home, well, your passion, because we're here because of passion. So those were my top insights. I can't really think of too much else. Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't really too much else. The day of was a whirlwind. It was from 10 to 4. Um, and I was like the second to last person to go. So I was definitely anxious by my talk. But prayer definitely helped. So I'm thankful for my coach praying over me and my family doing the same. And yeah, 6 hours kind of blows by fast. So yeah, you're more than welcome. I'm glad you found the tips helpful. But yeah, just be yourself. Definitely get plenty of rest. Do not lose sleep over it. I made sure I was nice and well rested. Um, and I can't lie, on the day of, it's just kind of too late for any last minute changes. You can try, but there were some things I wanted to tweak. But at the end of the day, I was in the zone. My mind just couldn't try to restructure anything else. So just food for thought. But we all can do this, guys. It doesn't. I'm not an anomaly here. Like, I'm not this special person that just can get all these things. Like, I want people to see that it's not as hard as we think. We just tend to limit ourselves because we don't know how yet, but it's about the yet part, right? So it was great to have Marc, Cordon, plant the seed of doing a TED talk, or getting used to the radio, getting used to being in the media. And that was a key part of me pushing to do a TED talk. And I've always had a dream of doing this regardless. I just didn't think it would happen so damn quickly. So again, I'm so grateful to all the coaches that invested in me, the people who took the time to support, the love, TEDxOcala for allowing me the stage and platform to do so, the mentors, the friends, the coaches, the support, the people who were gracious with me as I was sick, submitting some of my initial drafts. So yeah, hope this was helpful for you all. And yes, I will let you know when the next TED Talk takes place. But yes, check us out. Yes, Natalia, thank you, appreciate the love. Um, yeah, it was a dope time. It was surreal. It really was. I mean, people just genuinely just resonating with everyone's stories. It was again, it was an amazing moment. Of all ages, ethnicities, backgrounds, so diverse. It was such a diverse TED Talk. Um, I loved it. So I'll be back. One thing I'll note, of course, it's fall. So we are almost done with our fall cohort of the Deprescribing Accelerator. We've got another one coming up in February, late February. We've already got one person who is going to be in our cohort. So we're looking for 4 more people. Again, if you are a geriatric passionate professional, particularly if you're a pharmacist looking to start your own virtual concierge practice. That's what the Deprescribing Accelerator is about. But also, we're giving you the clinical tools to sharpen those Deprescribing skills. Whether you're interested in pharmacy, or if you're a geriatric nurse, PA, MD, a prescriber, we have a 15-hour live CE accredited course for you. It's taught live for 3 months, but you have a year's worth of access. So it's a 12-month program where we combine business coaching with clinical Deprescribing and get you very comfortable with public speaking, packaging a high ticket service. It's at least 4 figures. I know as pharmacists, we're used to 6-figure salaries. So how are we going to market ourselves and position ourselves and deliver something that solves a huge problem that, well, can get us also paid? That's what we teach as a part of our program. We also focus on giving you guys monthly coaching. So we have ongoing coaching and support after you finish our 3 months of live training. So our Deprescribing alumni have the chance to go back, review all the materials, downloadables, the toolkits that we've developed, and then get you comfortable packaging your own service. Because I don't think it should just be me. I think we need to have a movement for Deprescribing. And that's why I created the Deprescribing Accelerator, is to show that we can all be concierge pharmacists, but we can also be concierge pharmacists for other aging businesses. And my friends, that is what I see is completely missing. We don't have any other pharmacists in this space. It rare, unless they're attached to a long-term care facility or a nursing home. But no one is seen as a standalone pharmacist working on behalf of other businesses. And that's what's lacking in this system. So we teach you the secrets on how to do that, how to leverage your network, how to have social capital, how to, well, roll out genetic testing as a part of your service to use as a tool for Deprescribing. I love using those tools. It's been critical in our growth. And get you comfortable breaking through some of those mental blocks that makes you say, oh, I can't do this. I'm not credentialed enough. Oh, I don't have enough experience. Guess what? I didn't have enough experience. I don't have an MBA. I don't, but you don't need all that. I've got 4 years of mistakes. I have 4 years of business mistakes that will save you headache and time and money. So I can guarantee you, you're going to get something powerful from this. Ask our Deprescribing alumni, Dr. Tamara Ruggles, Dr. Megan Keller. We have Sharon Fant, Charlene Sparks, tons more. We have current ones right now, Dr. Meredy Phoebus, who's doing an amazing job. Whether you're leveraging Deprescribing to teach for other health systems or to develop your own role as a Deprescribing pharmacist, or you're, I don't know, rolling out pharmacogenomics in nursing facilities across the country. There are many ways we can do this. And my job is for you to align that passion with, well, service, because it's all about service. So, got much love for you guys. Thanks for tuning in to the red pill versus the blue pill. We only have 4 slots left. We cap our cohort at 5 people max. We start usually the last week of February. We're currently reviewing applications and interviewing people. So check out the link in our comments to learn more on how you can apply for the Deprescribing Accelerator. Again, it's a year-long coaching program that will get you very comfortable with geriatric deprescribing, integrative health, using holistic ways to heal, but also using some clinically available tools to advocate for our older adults and reduce harmful medication use. All right. Much love. Dr. DeLon here, tuning out. You guys take care, and I'll catch you guys for our next episode of the red pill versus the blue pill. All right. Later.